Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducks Gaming and a new video on the channel. I'm going over my current Alch and Goat farming strategy. What I thought I'd do before we get into the strategy, the tree, loot, that kind of thing, is just run a very quick map showcase to show generally how it performs, how quick it is, and what sort of loot you can expect to get. Now, it is a stream of consciousness Alch and Go setup, so you're not guaranteed to get all of the content that I've put on the tree, but it's about 75 to 8% chance. So the majority of the time you're going to get the content show up. So we'll do a map showcase and hopefully the content turns up. What I've done is 64 maps, which is a full run of Sanctum, or 2 full runs of Sanctum, sorry, and then it gives you 2 full invitations as well for whatever Exile or Eater of Worlds you're doing. And it really revolves around harvest and essences and nothing else really other than taking the nodes that give bosses a chance to drop maps. Now I will come back to that because I actually need to do the last Sanctum run, which I won't include the footage of. But I am including the loot, but I won't include it in a breakdown. I'm recording it separately. Just so you're going to have a look what you might expect from Sanctum runs if you include them in your farming strategy. Obviously, this is a strategy made for a mapper, so if you've got a quick character, it's definitely going to be beneficial. So we're going to do the harvest first. As you'll see when we go through the tree, I've taken all the nodes that block as much purple and blue as I can, because yellow harvest juice is worth the most, so it made sense. But you do, on quite a lot of occasions, just get purple and blue turn up in a plot. But in terms of an entire harvest rotation, I haven't had any where yellow has not shown up at all. This looks like it could be the first one. But as you can see, it's fairly quick to nip in and do the harvest. I'm running Strand because the map is really quick. It's not got the best density in the world, I know that. But for the stuff I'm looting, which is mainly essences and harvest, doesn't really matter what the pack size is on the map. Any that don't have a special one in, I'm not bothering with. So we didn't actually get a yellow one for the first time in the whole strategy. It's up to you whether you do the ones that don't have tier 3 monsters, and you might get, 50 to 100 life force out of it. But to me, it's not really worth the time doing it. So we'll go and take those and just make sure we haven't got another plot. We don't, so we'll get out of here. With essences, which again I'll show in the tree, I don't take the one that adds lots of corruption essences to the map, because even though corrupted essences in terms of the essence is worth like 2 to 3 chaos, the special essences are worth like 30 chaos each, and you get quite a few times where they end up getting doubled. So I prefer not to bulk sell my remnants of corruption. I prefer to use them to corrupt essences, and I've probably had well over 200 chaos of the special essences drop. So I think it's definitely the better option. But if you wanted guaranteed currency and you don't have to worry about corrupting essences, then obviously you can go for the nodes that add essences of corruption into like 1 in 5 of your essences. And overall, the maps are taking between 2.5 to 4 minutes, depending what map it is, what content shows up, and obviously what modifiers are on the map. So that's kind of it. Didn't get any loot from that really other than our harvest juice, but that's kind of the strategy in terms of how quickly the maps take. And this is my dump tab, which we'll go through shortly. But firstly, I'll go through the strategy. Then I'm going to go and finish my Sanctum and just show really quick highlights. And then we'll go over the loot, what you get per map. I'm not doing any sort of per hour because it all depends on how quickly you map, how quickly you do the league mechanics. So I'd rather just do a per map. This is how much you can expect to get from harvest. This is what you get from essences. And this is what you get from the map nodes. So in terms of the tree, it's fairly straightforward. We are taking all of the essence nodes other than these here. If I had more points, I'd probably take them. But all they do a lot of the time is just add 3 essences you don't really want. And then it just makes the essence monster harder. And if you do get like 6, 7, 8 essences in one monster, they can actually be really difficult even for strong builds. So we're running Exile. I don't have the points to finish off the pack size. We're taking the chances for bosses to drop maps, and I've definitely seen that been beneficial. I've dropped quite a lot of maps, which we'll go through when we go through the loot. Taking the sextant modifier has one use just for me, because it will then make my sextants cheaper because I don't need to use as many. And also when we get those sextants that we want to sell, they're obviously worth more money if there's 4 uses rather than 3. And a lot of people just don't buy the 3-use sextants because they're a bit of a pain because they'll be out of sync with your other ones. So for harvest, we're taking up to the Sacred Grove chance. I don't have the points to take the extra monsters. We're taking these nodes here. we're taking the extra chance here, and then we're also taking reduced chance to grow blue and reduced chance to grow purple, because yellow I think are the rarest, because even with blocking, I still think I'm getting as much purple and blue as yellow. So either these don't work or yellow is rarer. And so we're taking stream of consciousness because we want our content to show up as often as possible. Now, this may not be the most optimal tree. I think it is. There might be a better way to path. You might be able to go this way and cut some bits out here. So you might be able to save a point somewhere, but this is a tree that I've gone with. I'm blocking everything other than obviously harvest. And then I'm leaving rogue markers in because they actually show up all the time because of blocking so much content. So you can just collect the rogue markers, sell them if you want, sell the contracts if you want. Not including them in the loot, but I'll show you what we get out of it. So I've had to sacrifice these map nodes here again because I don't have points. But other than that, we're taking shaping the skies, and we're taking shaping the mountains, and we're taking shaping the valleys. And this is kind of the tree. And the idea is you're on a map like Strand that's really linear, really quick. You blast through it in 2 to 3, 4 minutes. You get your harvest done, you go and get your Sanctum, you get the essences, and then you get out. And it's as simple as that. And a lot of the loot that you get is really, really easy to sell. The reason I've picked Harvest is because the Divine price is just getting insane. Harvest juice seems to be holding its value pretty well. You can bulk sell it in Divines, and put in as much as you can into a map means that you're going to get enough to hopefully sell for a good few Divines at the end of it. And you don't have to worry about selling in Chaos and then trying to convert your Chaos into Divines. Now, we'll say in terms of Harvest loot, I think I was quite unlucky because there's a node here that gives you a chance to duplicate Life Force. And nearly all of the time when that procs, it was when something like 9 or 10 Life Force dropped. So I think in terms of what I've actually looted is on the low end, but it's still fairly decent. In terms of the loot, when we go through, I'm not going to include anything like rare drops. I'm going to include Divines because they're currency that's going to drop. The only reason I wouldn't include them is if that's the only high value currency we had. In terms of who it would suit, it's definitely a mapping strategy. So you're going to need a quick character. You're going to need a character with good DPS. And you need fairly decent survivability because ideally you are alching the maps, chiseling them. Or sorry, let's do it in the right order. You're chiseling your maps, you're alching your maps, and then you're vialing them all. And you want to be able to run every map mod if possible because you don't want to have to then put 10 maps aside and roll 10 more. So the only mod I can't run, I can do Leech because I have a tiny bit of life and mana on hit and that's enough to sustain. The only mod I can't do is Ellie Reflect because my Awakened Ellie damage is not high enough yet. But you're going to have that roll on Sextants at some point when you're doing this many maps. So you just put them to one side and then you run them when you roll your Sextant. So the original plan was to do 100 maps, but I'm just not going to get time to do that. With Christmas on the horizon, got lots of stuff to sort. I'm just not going to have time to do that many maps. So I was trying to figure out a number that would make sense. And I think 2 full Sanctum runs is a good sample size. So all I was doing, as I say, this is my Sanctum loot so far. You can ignore that. Was I'd dump all my maps in here, chisel, Alch, Val, and then I would just search for Ellie Reflect and pull those aside and put them to one side. I've also filtered out my unID'd maps in case I rolled the Sextant where you get more quant in unID'd maps. I never did, but it's just doing that just in case. Now, ideally, when I did this test, I had 50 Strand maps, and then I had 50 other maps that were a decent layout, and I didn't want to buy maps. But in terms of when I go through the profitability, I'm going to include 5 Chaos per map for actually buying that map. And I would recommend definitely doing something like Strand. Alleyways was okay, but I did notice it was longer. Toxic Sewer is definitely longer because there is some sort of backtracking when you do Toxic Sewer. Dunes, again, it's a bit of a sideways map to clear. So I think overall for this strategy, I'd recommend you just buy 100 strands to do it if you wanted to be more efficient, because the strand maps were definitely at least a minute quicker than the other maps. And when you add that over, say, 64 maps, that's a long time. That's like an hour extra you're taking to run maps if you don't do pure strands. So that's what I would recommend. But you pick the layout that you like the best. If you're not keen on Strand and you have another map that you clear really quickly, then go for that. There's no particular map you have to use for this strategy. I'll just use Strand because it's just a straight line, really easy. You can't miss the league mechanic, you can't miss Harvest, and you can't miss your essences. So it just makes it nice and simple. So what I'm going to do now is cut away. I'm going to go and finish my Sanctum. Then I'm going to go and sort all my loot out, get it all tallied up, get rid of the stuff that we shouldn't really be putting into returns, and then I'll be back with you. So we ended up with 2 Divines waiting for us at the end. It could have been 4, and I misclicked stupidly. So we've got 2 Divines waiting for us if we can kill the boss. Then we'll go and kill her off, not that way, and get our loot. I don't know why she's not dying. There we go. So we'll see what... And also I realised if you run off too quick, you miss the loot that she drops. Okay, so I'll go and collect our loot, and then we'll stick it in a separate stash. Nice. And I would say until I got the 2 divines, that was a pretty average run. Like I said, that could have been 4 divines. That could have been a really good run. I just totally messed up. So we'll go and dump this loot, and then I'll calculate everything, and then we'll go over the returns. So I've been through, sorted out the loot. I've basically dumped any Screaming Essences, any div cards that you're not really going to sell. The only thing I've left in are my maps, which most of these would be sellable because all these first 3 rows are the favorite maps. And then I've left these in, which it will value at like 4C a map. The reason I've done it is all of these Conqueror maps that I had drop and this Guardian map here are not going to get priced in Excellence Next. And for some reason, Coward's Trial isn't either. So these are actually definitely going to be worth more than what these maps are in Excellence Next. So realistically, the income is probably a bit more than what's stated, but it's quite a lot of hassle to remove all the individual maps and then price up all of the Guardian maps. I would say the nodes for the map drops were definitely worth it. I would think Conqueror maps are really, really good value. I got quite lucky with the amount I had drop. Normally, you'd have probably more Shaper or Elder ones drop, but it's a really, really nice income. We had 2 synth maps. This map has nothing to do with that node, but it was worth 50C at the time it dropped. And then we had a Guardian node and, as I say, a couple of synth maps. So overall, I think it's probably worth doing because it doesn't take any time. I will say 1 of 4 of these maps came from a sextant where you drop a Conqueror map. But obviously, the alternative would have been selling that sextant. So either way, it's going to have been money. I didn't really drop any really profitable sextants. I sold 1. Bosses are surrounded by a Harbinger. They went for about 15 to 16 Awakened Sextants. And then I've got 2 left that I haven't sold that haven't been priced. So again, these would normally be added on. But it's really RNG as to what sextants you get. So we had a Legion one and we had a Beyond one. So combined, they probably sell for like 12 Awakened Sextants. It's nothing major. But as you can see, in terms of the loot, it's stuff that either you're going to use or is really easily sellable. So obviously, these would be whatever your 2 favorite maps are. So if we go and have a look, I basically set all of my favorites to Strand and then the one next to Strand, which is Alleyways, which is quite a nice layout and sells as my other favorite. And we over-sustained on our favorite maps. Awakened Sextants pretty much all come from altars. All of the essences, which are definitely worth money, they're all shrieking at the moment. And it's up to you whether you upgrade them to deafening. Some are better to sell as shrieking, some are better as deafening. And then we had the 6 special essences, which is why I said I was using the essences of corruption, because I think you definitely get more money doing that than selling them. And you also might end up upgrading shrieking essences to deafening. So I think for the sake of 2.5 chaos per essence, you're well better off going for the favorite ones, because even if it takes you 8 every time to get one of these, you're still making more money and they're easier to sell. Lessers, I ended up taking off my loot filter because they're really not worth anything. And then we got some greater and a few grands. Chaos, again, would normally all come from the altars. 2 div cards here, which are worth some money. You will get div cards drop that are worth money because the altars give you a lot of div cards. Normal ones that you'll find are things like Inspired Learning is really common. This one here, Azran's Reward, I think I've had like over a set of them drop since farming the altar. So I'll leave these in because they are drops that you will get. Maybe not the Watcher's Eye, but it's 0.3, 0.4 divines. It's not going to make or break the strategy. And then everything else is just general currency, which you can either keep for yourself or you can sell. I had lots of Scarabs drop because, again, you're going to get these from the altars. And then I had a smattering of Catalyst because I ended up with a couple of Metamorph Sextants. I just thought I might as well use them. And then, obviously, the Organs, I don't think it prices those, but they're not worth a lot. A Raised Zombie worth like 5C. And then just some scouting reports. You've obviously had your invitations that you're going to get dropped no matter what strategy you do. But because if you've got a decent character, this strategy is, I would say if you do Strand 3 to 3.5 minutes a map, you turn in these around really quickly. And we've got all of the Life Force, which sells in bulk really well. Like you can see here, you can sell it for a Divine for 900. So just this here would be 2 Divines. And then you've got your blue and your purple juice. You can either sell these or you can use them to craft. You could use the blue ones to turn... you could use the blues to reroll your delirium mobs. There's loads of things you could do with the juice if you didn't want to sell it. Obviously got all our maps and then a couple of uniques here. Not worth very much, but they're worth more than a C, so I thought I'd put them in. And then we had 2 memories that are worth like 3 or 4C each. Not a lot. And then again, we got beyond on a few sextants. So we ended up with 1 tainted fusing, 1 mythic orb, and then just some random smatterings of currency. So what I thought I'd do is just go into some costs for the strategy and how much it made per map. Apologies for the bright white. I don't have like a black version of this. I don't know if you can get one. But say the setup was not a lot at all. So for 64 maps, the total cost was 634 chaos, we'll call it. And the other costs involved, which would be re-rolling a few things with sextants where you got a sextant you wanted to keep. So you'd roll another one and using a few essences of corruption. So overall, the total cost was just under 680 chaos, which comes out at 10.5 chaos per map. And the total income of all that loot I just showed was just short of 4,300. As I say, it's probably more realistically 4,400 when you factor in the Coward's Trial and the Conqueror maps. But we'll keep it this because at least it means if you do it, you should get more than this. The only other thing to point out is in terms of currency, we had 1 raw divine drop, which is here. But then we also had 2 exalts drop. So nothing crazy in terms of the income. And it's all super easy to sell. If you want to, you can sell this for like chaos, or you could just keep it for crafting or whatever you wanted to do with it. Val orbs sell really easily. Obviously, sextants sell super easily. And the reason I like this strategy is sextants sell for divines in bulk. So do the harvest dues. And when you get enough of these invitations, you can sell these in bulk for divines as well. So it's all things that are kind of steering away from chaos because we've no idea what's going to happen with the divine price. But overall, it was really fun to do, really easy, really straightforward. But you do need a half decent character to do it. In terms of whether harvest is worth it, I think it definitely is. It takes about a minute to do per map. The total income that we had from harvest was over 1,100 chaos over 64 maps. And then per map, that's almost 18 chaos. So actually, before you factor in anything else that you've got, so your essences, the stuff from your altars, your invitations, you're already making 7 to 8 chaos profit per map just from doing harvest. And I would 100% recommend blocking purple and blue because yellow is the most costly. And it actually looks like it did work. I wasn't sure earlier. I think I mentioned they were about the same. They're not. Clearly, we've got loads more yellow life force than the blue and the purple. So it's definitely worth doing. And if you do it, make sure you block the blue and the purple. So before I sign off, I'll just go through the loot for the Sanctum run. I said this could have been better because I misclicked and could have got an extra 2 divines. But overall, this is 2 complete runs. And I think this is definitely worth doing. And the more you do it, the better you get it and the quicker you get at it. Because it is a time thing, because if you've got a decent, profitable mapping strategy, Sanctum might not be worth it. But I actually really enjoy it, and I find it really breaks up mapping or whatever strategy you're doing, because it is totally different gameplay. So it's something that I personally am going to carry on doing. I really, really like it. So we'll just go and quickly have a look at the Sanctum income, which is just over 1,000 chaos. So in terms of today's divine rate, is 3.36, but obviously we had 2 divines drop. So if you had 2 runs and you didn't have any divines drop, you're probably looking at 1.3 divines, but you should be able to do 2 sanctums in less than an hour. And the loot from our first sanctum was really, really bad. So overall, I think it's 100% worth doing. And if you get divines in any of your sanctums, I think it makes it worthwhile per hour. Now, I know 3 divines per hour doesn't sound amazing, but with the insane price of divines at the moment, you're talking 1,000 chaos from 2 runs. That's 1,000 chaos in less than an hour. I think that's pretty good, and I think that's very difficult to replicate with a simple mapping strategy. The reason I wanted to give you guys this strategy is because there is minimal setup time. So if you're someone that only has an hour or 2 to play in a particular day, you don't want that first hour to be prepping your maps and then only be able to get, say, 10 or 12 of them run, and then you've got to log off and you might log on the next day or the day after to carry on playing. You literally put your maps in a tab, chisel them all, alch them, val them, search any mods you don't want to run, dump them to one side, and then off you go. It's that simple. So that is the strategy that I've been using. Really been working for me, and I like it. If you don't like harvest and you don't like essences, then obviously it won't be a strategy for you. But it's something I'd recommend trying. If you're a bit stuck for a strategy and you don't want to waste time on trade or in TFT buying all the resources for a mapping strategy. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.